Yeah, totally cool. We get the whole game.
Yep.
This is like a total AHN week I'm
It
having.
is, yeah.
So we're live now. So
Okay.
we're all set to go. Let me just pull up the screen so I can monitor the chat. Hold on. Okay, we're good now. Okay, I see your significant other is on.
He is. I'm
Yeah.
not paying him to be on.
Oh. Oh, he's doing it for free.
Yep.
Oh my God, that's
It's the
awesome.
hazards of being married to me.
I love the interspousal support. That's
Yep.
awesome. Yeah. So super cool. Hey everybody, if you're just jumping on, you are on with Leo Chen, and this is Wisdom Club Live, and we are streaming to you live here today. If you are on and you are joining us live, just put the word live for me so that I can see that you can see us and you can hear us and all the technical stuff is good. If you are watching from a replay, please say hello. Just say hello. I'll know that you're from replay, and that way we can kind of keep the party going. Today, I have a great guest. She is Michelle Epstein. Is it Epstein or Epstein? It's always like
Yeah, it's Epstein.
Epstein.
Yep,
Okay.
you got it.
And she's got a very interesting background and profession, and I'm looking forward to learning more. And we've been kind of planning this and going back and forth a little bit. And I met her through AHN, which is Asian Hustle Network. It's a private group here on Facebook. If you guys want to check it out, you don't have to be Asian, but a lot of people are Asian in the group. It's a really big and very collaborative networking group. We also both are in a group that Kevin runs. It's called Networking with Kevin. So I had Kevin on yesterday, and so if you guys want to know about how that group works and my conversation with Kevin, you can just go back and listen to that. Not right now, but maybe later. So Michelle, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How about you, Leo? Thank you so much for having me on your, live show. Really,
Absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely. I'm so delighted that you're here. I want to respect your time and everything. So um, I always like to give context to the audience who are watching, like your background and your upbringing, and so that we kind of get to know like your family life growing up, how you like ended up to be a lawyer,
Mhm.
because it's quite a feat for most people. And so that way we can kind of know like there was a there was some sort of madness, right,
Yeah.
to get there. So take it away.
Sure, of course. So I grew up in Orange County all my life. I'm still living in Orange County. I don't think I would change it for the world. I really love it. I have a younger sister, so she's 2 years younger than I am. But I say that she's probably like my parents' like golden child because she she's a doctor, so she just finished med school, so now she's starting her residency. So that is why she's like the golden child.
Yeah,
um,
so if you guys don't know, like in the Chinese culture, like if you're a doctor or a lawyer, I mean, doctors probably beats lawyer a little
Doctor
bit.
beats lawyer all day.
And so if you're a doctor, you're almost like treated like a king because like,
Yeah.
oh, I succeeded, and the sooner you become a doctor, like the rest of your life, you're like praised by your parents, right?
Yes. Yeah, and I think like my sister knew she wanted to be a doctor all her life. For me, I always thought I didn't always think I would be a lawyer growing up. I always thought I would be in the fashion industry. So like growing up, I always had like sketches that I would do. I thought I would own my own, either boutique or, I would be a stylist of some sort. But before I went into fashion school, I took a job at an IP firm. So, they primarily did a lot of trademark work for Fortune 500 companies throughout the world. So a lot of countries that people may not even heard about, I've worked in. So, and I kind of really just fell in love at that moment because I was like, wow, like I got to see all these brands before they roll them out. And so I thought that was neat because you know, I always love legal. So being able to do, you know, the branding side of it and also the legal side of it, it was kind of like a really good marriage of like, you know, my passions. And so that's kind of how I ended up, you know, pursuing that path of being a lawyer. And now I'm a brand, you know, trademark lawyer. So I help a lot of companies with their branding.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's really interesting because I'm fascinated by like some people who can find a profession or something I do that uses both the creativity side as well as some of the more logical, technical, legal side. And
Mm-hmm.
so that kind of like always fascinates me because, you know, it requires a certain person. Like sometimes when you're creative all the time, like you have no structure and like everything just goes and like it needs time. It has, you know, it has to hit you, like, you
Yeah.
know, that kind of thing. You know, inspiration has to come on its own. You can't rush it and all of that.
Yeah.
But then you're gonna marry that with, you know, logistics of stuff. And you know, I don't know much about law, but I'll pretend to know something. But that legally, you know, there's a lot of technical, you know, words and jargon that has to be, you know, in there, you know, to
Mhm.
fit, you know, what it is that you're trying to do. So so you actually ended up enjoying that side of it as well? Because coming from fashion, that's more creative.
Yeah, I know it's such like an interesting mix because whenever I tell people, they're like, "Oh, that's interesting," because like you know you think of like the legal field as being really structured, and I actually really like that aspect of it. So that's why I think I always enjoyed it. I mean, going to college, I always enjoyed my legal classes, so I think it was kind of like innately in me, and being able to kind of blend both of those worlds is like kind of amazing that I can actually have a career in that.
Yeah, it sounds great. So so you worked for a company that kind of got you interested and know more about it. Are you still working with that same company, or did you create your own company?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I worked with another company for, you know, almost like half a decade. I kind of started there as just an executive assistant at that time because I really thought I was going to fashion school. So I was like, oh, I'll just take this job. But, you know, I ended up being really good at it. And then I ended up leading I became head of their international trademark department. So, you know, we handled a lot of portfolios for a lot of large companies around the world. And that was really exciting. And then, you know, I worked a lot in the US and then now I have like my own firm. So I get to kind of deal with, you know, a lot of my international clients and my domestic US based clients. So yeah.
Okay. And so at which point, like, did you like realize that this is what you wanted to do? Because there was quite a bit of journey, right? Like you were not a licensed lawyer,
Mm-hmm.
right? But you were doing a lot of deals with, you know, you were in the room helping coordinate, you know, and I'm sure some negotiations and stuff like that with
Mm-hmm.
other official lawyers. So, like, how do you transition from kind of entering that into like your own full-fledged lawyer
Yeah.
and actually basically running your own practice, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think I knew it's what I wanted to stay in when, you know, I got to see the benefits of all of it. So, you know, once something registers or even being able to enforce a mark against somebody else that may be copying them, it's a really rewarding process because you're like, I help somebody protect their brand, you know, essentially their baby and their business. So that's kind of where I knew when I knew, you know, this is kind of like the field that I want to be in because, you know, I get to help business owners. And then being a business owner myself, I think it puts me in a very unique situation now because I really can understand a lot of the struggles that people are talking about. So whenever I have consults with people, you know, they always tell me, and they talk to me about, you know, maybe some of their fears, their goals, and you know, I strategize with them because I can understand, you know, where they're coming from.
Yeah, you know, perspective and experience with all that stuff really goes a long way. You know,
Yeah.
as we get older and we have more experience, we have so much more different ways we can perceive something, and that gives us so much, you know, joy because then we can really be more we can sympathize and we can empathize with what other people, you know, are doing as well. So
Yeah.
definitely being a business owner, like it's a huge leap, you
Mm-hmm.
know. or a lot of people like they can see like, oh my God, I gotta like run this ship, like I gotta drive this
Yeah.
ship down, you know, I gotta keep it afloat and make sure I don't sink it, you know, I gotta put the sails up and all that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
So in your job then, since coming from the fashion industry, how do you feed that creative side? Like what feeds you exactly in your position?
Sure. I mean, I definitely try to balance it out. So it's like, I'm not always doing legal stuff. So, once I'm kind of like winded down for the day, I express that creativity through cooking. So, we're friends on Facebook. So you always see my posts. I'm always like cooking with my husband. So if we're not cooking, when we're done with work, we usually watch cooking shows. So we're always learning about like, what's the next best recipe? How do we make this dish better? So yeah, that's like
Awesome.
my creative outlet.
That's super awesome. What kind of food do you guys like to cook in general?
So lately it's been a lot of like comfort food, which is like so unfortunate for COVID times, right? Thank goodness we bought like a treadmill and like we have a Peloton. So like, we try to be like, okay, this day we're gonna work out, but we've made some really good soft baked pretzels. So those were good. We do like deep dish pizzas. So that's been a hit, and we have our family come over sometimes and they kind of get to enjoy all of that. And we recently made Penang curry, so that was really good.
Nice. I love making curries of different kinds,
Yeah.
like Japanese, Chinese, and Japanese is one of my favorites. But lately, it's been like the Thai curries. Like they make it so different because they put like coconut milk and stuff in it.
Yeah.
So like it makes it not too heavy,
Yeah.
but then still kind of rich. So I have a few Thai restaurants that I go to regularly. And
Mm-hmm.
so now because of the pandemic, I'm like, okay, well, I gotta somehow duplicate it because they're like shut down for like more than.
Oh no.
And so I used to be like at least 2, 3 times a week I would go and have it. And it's really simple to make,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just getting all the ingredients, you know?
Yeah, I know. That's kind of like our weekend trips. We're like, we have like a list and like we're of ingredients of like what we want to make, and then we like go and get them.
And it's totally like foods like that. It's not like I'm making pizza. I know what I need. I need, tomato sauce. I need
Yeah.
pepperoni. I need, some, I don't know, sausage, and I need a dough. It's not that simple. Like you go and shop like, okay, there's like 20 different like sauces.
Yeah,
Which one
exactly.
exactly, right? And
Yeah.
then when you have hot sauce, like, okay, there's 20 different hot sauce. Like,
Yeah.
which one is the right one for this dish? You know? So that's definitely like a struggle. But you guys do it together, like that's super fun.
Yeah, that's kind of like our unwinding time, like our creative time, because
Yeah,
he's a lawyer too. So, we both need to unwind, and that's kind of like what we do.
yeah. So I want to talk about that. Did you guys meet at work? Is that why he's a lawyer as well?
No, we didn't. So we actually met at like a networking event. So he was part of the Filipino Chamber of Commerce, and he always like gives credit to that Chamber of Commerce for like being existing and and us meeting. But some people they imagine that when we first met it was like it's like kind of like in those movies where it's like we're googly eyed. But honestly, like when we first met, I was like, oh my god, this is another lawyer. Like, do not want to talk to another lawyer.
Because you've seen so many, you've talked to so many, you work with so many,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And that was kind of like the general consensus, which is, generally like that was how I felt when we first met. But we just became really good friends after that, and he really supported me through a lot of like my journey as being a lawyer over the past few years. So yeah.
So how is it? I can't help to ask this question. How is it working? Working as a lawyer, but then having a lawyer spouse, like what is that show? What is that lawyer show that's really popular?
Suits.
Yeah, Suits,
Uh-huh.
exactly.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, because like there's so many personal things going on. Like, what do you guys fight about? What do you guys agree on? Like that's what I want to know.
I think like Suits obviously like I think over dramatizes like lawyer disputes in real life. most of the time lawyers talk to each other reasonably. Of course, you deal with opposing counsel sometimes that aren't that great and you just have to deal with it. But as far as us, I think like the biggest argument was us playing this game called Overcooked. And like, we were just so frustrated because, you know, we both have to work together to like make a meal electronically. And so through a game, and I think that was probably like our biggest dispute, which is, you know, kind of crazy, but it didn't even matter. Yeah.
So like as far as lawyers concerned, I mean, you guys have your specialty and everything, but for what you guys do, you don't go to court much, or how yeah, tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think it just depends on your practice area. So if you're litigation, of course, you're going to court more often. Now, you know, Zoom calls are the new normal. And, you know, for me, I do more transactional, so it's not really litigation. You know, I do talk to opposing counsel sometime to try to settle matters, but it's not to the point where, you know, I need to go to court. But that's something that my husband does all the time. So he's either on the call with the court or he has like a Zoom call.
Yeah. I want to take the moment here. If you guys are watching, hey, if you guys have any questions, go ahead and post them in the comments. Because I got like 1 million of them right now, and I'm kind of
okay.
so if you guys have any questions, you're watching, you want to know anything about you know, Michelle, her husband, or what she does, which is interesting too. But I wanted to just kind of like, for people who are like, so I never really had to deal with any IP stuff, and I know it's really important as we get more and more into business. I'm building my brand, you know. For the past probably a couple of years, I've been building my brand. And so what do the average people need to know? Entrepreneurs, what do they need to know, you know, just so that they can keep themselves from any problems ahead of time? I'm sure at some point, you know, they should engage with you on, you know, more specific advice on where they're going with their brand and what possible downfalls that could be. Can you kind of give us, everybody, like maybe IP 101?
Yeah, of course. So, you know, trademark protection in particular is so important. I mean, you know, the main question that I always get asked is, you know, how soon do I need to register my trademark? And my general answer is ASAP, you know, as soon as possible. And the reason being is because, you know, as soon as you kind of develop your brand name, you're essentially creating your baby and putting that out there in the market. And once it's out there in the market, it's for anybody to see. And also to take. So you kind of don't want to be in that situation where you've kind of built your brand and then you're really having issues trying to either obtain registration or enforce your brand against somebody else who may be trying to copy you.
Okay. And so are there certain industries that are more prone to IP issues than others? Like, what are you seeing? I mean,
there's, you know, apparel is definitely one of them because I think it's such a crowded field. There's a lot of apparel companies that are out there that are operating kind of with similar names. So you run into a lot of issues where, you know, one party will send a cease and desist letter to another party, or it kind of rises to the level of litigation. And that's just lately what I've seen with apparel companies. But, you know, every company, so it's like, there's not one company that I can say that's immune. So I think it's always helpful to, at least when you're starting your business, or even if you have a business, to touch base with an intellectual property attorney like myself, to give you options. And then at least that can educate that person and they can factor that into their business plan or growth and development. And then they can plan appropriately from there.
Okay, so I have a ton of people in my network because I'm a real estate agent. A lot of people are real estate agents. And you can see like everybody's building their brand off of their name, which is part of, in case everybody watching here, in case you didn't know, there are regulations with our California associations that you need to have at least one part of your name to be part of the your team or group name if you're going to be promoting that as a brand. You can't just use some other random word that you made up, you know, like a company name. And if you do, you have to register that in a way that's legal for the real estate industry and the association so that it can be recognized. Because most people do use their name for their team, their group, or even their realty sometimes. I personally have my own corporation under another name, but my branding is my name, on it. And so, do you see any like longer term issues with that? And what would you advise somebody like me? I know there's a lot of agents out there that might be watching as well.
Yeah, I always tell people at least run a search. So like if you're not committed to a market, and this happens all the time when people are thinking about what should their brand name be, how should they roll that out. And I consult a lot of the time with brand owners on whether or not it's a viable name that they can kind of expand with. And so my general recommendation with them always is to at least do a search. And so that can at least give you a good lot of information so that you can kind of like see what else is out there, whether or not you'll run into any potential issues, how likely your mark will be able to register. So that's super important, I think, for any business, not just those in the real estate industry, but for anybody that's deciding to roll out a brand.
I think a really easy way, just because I come from tech originally, the easy way is to just go see if you can register your name or your brand on the domain name, and you see if other people have registered or taken it. At least give you some indication. Because I tried to do that many years ago and decided not to. But then when I tried again, like it was taken. And so now I always tell the story when people I don't know, it's like, okay, your name is Leo. That's a great name. I said, well, thank you. But for probably most of my life, I never met another Leo. Until probably, I want to say like maybe 10, 15 years ago, I started meeting more Leos.
Okay.
before that, growing up, I never met another Leo. And so I thought it was really unique. And then all of a sudden, there's people here. And my mom found out when I was buying a truck, they ran a credit on me. And they say, what happened here? It says you owe 80 grand. I go, no, I don't. I didn't buy anything. And it was some other Leo Chen that was in Texas.
Oh, okay.
And so they sorted it all out and there was no problem. That's one of my first indications, like, oh, well, there's obviously other people with my name. It's not really that super uncommon now. Like somebody called me from the Bay Area. So, hey, is your name Leo Chen? I'm like, just like random, like, no, I don't know who this person is. He goes, yeah, I've been getting your emails. Somebody been sending email to you to my mailbox, and my name is Leo Chen too.
Yeah.
So those kinds of things, but so you recommend that people just more specifically, like in my industry, most people do what I do with their names. That they do some searches like online to see if there's any other companies or anybody else with that same name, and then what should they do? Like run it by you if they do, and then kind of see how you can be protected, and you can draft some kind of trademark protection.
Yeah. So the domain name that you mentioned is a really good indicator if you're a diligent and serious business. My recommendation usually to clients is just to try to get every single variation of the domain name, even ones that like sound similar to it, just so that nobody tries to get that domain. But of course, you always want to do that search on the United States Patent and Trademark Office. And so that's something that I would, do with the client. So if they have a name in mind, they generally come to me. If there's like 2 or 3 names that they kind of debate about, we do a search on all the ones that they want to. And I'll look at the United States Patent and Trademark Office records, just doing my deep dive into the searches, because there's about like 45 categories that you can essentially register your mark in. And so you want to make sure that you're covering yourself on all those bases. And so once we kind of do the search, I report that back to the client, give them options, tell them like, hey, it's good to go, or like, oh, you know what, there's actually some issues that we need to talk about. Usually, searches come clean, and we'll file the mark, and it takes about 3 months before an examiner at the United States Patent and Trademark Office reviews it. And if it's a good to go mark, meaning that there's no issues, then it'll move to the publication stage, where it's a 30-day window where third parties essentially will be able to oppose, your mark if they feel like their rights are being infringed. If there's no issue, then I'll move to the registration stage. And a lot of the questions that I typically get is, how long does it take to obtain a trademark registration, right? People think that it's kind of like an overnight process, but it's really not. It takes about 9 months to obtain registration if you're filing it on a use basis, meaning that you're already using the mark in interstate commerce. So it's about 9 months if it's a smooth process. And so that's kind of like where the value is, where you have an attorney that kind of oversees it for that whole entire months. They're kind of following up with the trademark office, making sure that your mark is going through, and then making sure you obtain registration.
Yeah, so that was my next question. So anybody wants to pursue this, obviously some investigation, and then once you pursue the trademark, you're saying it's probably about a 9 months process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Very cool. I think I learned something today.
That's good.
Let's talk networking.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, our favorite subject, right?
I know. I love networking. You mentioned about Kevin's, networking event that he holds every Tuesday, and I try not to miss it because, it kind of gives me a lot of inspiration. And there's kind of like a teach section of it, which, the kind of like the format. And that's actually my favorite part, because I get to at least learn about other industry professionals and what they do, and kind of takes me out of my legal world and learn about what other people do.
Yeah, I just love that group because it's so collaborative, and people really putting their best foot forward to offer whatever they can. And then being very open and being very giving. And so it's, I attend a lot of networking groups, previously, more live and stuff like that. And they're not all like that. And I don't know if you probably have too, right?
Yeah, I used to be so involved like in-person networking events, and I'm so surprised we've like never met in person, because I know you're kind of like based in Irvine area, right?
Yeah, I'm like right next door.
Yeah, and so, I go to so many networking events prior to like COVID that I'm just surprised that we've never met. But
I know. So it took a pandemic, I guess.
I know. But that's okay. I met so many great people since COVID, honestly. I've met a lot of great hustlers out there.
Yeah, and it was one of the reasons I started this show is when the pandemic hit. I was like trying to be tough and like, okay, well, I'll stay home, and I'm very active. I hike a lot. I organize hiking groups. I play volleyball on weekends. I go to the farmers market. I'm always with my clients, appointments, showing homes, and all that kinds of like a lot of stuff is out. But then because I worked in tech for so long before, I'm also equally comfortable in my office and doing all my communication, there. But just to be honest, after a couple of weeks or so, I'm like, oh, I can't, I miss my people. Like I missed the in-person, like face-to-face thing, because it really balanced me out between being in the office and being out. And which is the reason I had quit my last job, is so that I can be out with clients and do the lunches and do the coffees and show homes and all that kind of stuff. And so after a couple of weeks, like, okay, I got to do something. And I had previously thought about doing a podcast, but instead, after looking at doing podcasts and started tinkering around with it, I ended up like, hey, I can just do Facebook Live and just be done with it. Like I don't have to set up all this music and like cut it up and syndicate it and all that stuff. And once I'm done with this, I can pull the audio off of these interviews. They can be podcasts, no problem. Right? And so I was just, and that really saved me, because I was able to talk to so many people that I miss, and just do these conversations, and other people can also watch and, and learn something, or just be around. And it helps a lot of people like to see a familiar face, they can jump on.
Right. Yeah.
So that's, one of the reasons for this too. So I totally agree. Like, we miss people, but this is kind of born out of the pandemic thing. And I'm just trying to keep it keep it going because, you know, I just continue to meet more people like you.
Yeah.
I would love to be able to just talk to one-on-one and, you know, just getting to know you guys, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
So um, uh, networking. So when you network, you, I mean, basically you're looking, I mean, ultimately we're all networked to try to get to know somebody, build a relationship for sure. But the ideal person for you would be like somebody who have businesses and that they may need some, you know, IP assistance and going over some consultation initially about like, hey, you know, I just want to make sure I'm protected. That's probably most of it, right?
Right.
Because otherwise people like get into trouble with something and then you talk to them and then like you have to like work backwards to try to like, you know,
Yeah.
unwind everything. Does that happen a lot?
You mean as far as like trying to backtrack everything with companies? It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. So I try to come in at the point where they're thinking about protection, and then give them options. Because although I would love to take on that work, you know, it is costly and it takes a lot of time for a lot of companies if they need to kind of enforce their brand.
I see.
Yeah.
I see. So it's a more proactive approach.
Yep, definitely. Yeah.
Okay. And so then that's kind of what you're looking for to see who needs assistance, you
Yeah.
know.
I think like, you know, definitely business owners are always great to connect with, but usually when I'm out networking, it is something that's in the back of your mind, but also like genuinely being able to connect with somebody, because I've gotten great referrals and they're not even like a business owner. They just know somebody that knows somebody. And so, you know, that's kind of like how I operate. I try to lead when I'm networking with just educating and at least, you know, knowing about the other person. And that kind of at least helps me either refer them work or, you know, at least grow my network, which is helpful and beneficial for a lot of my clients.
Right. Okay, very cool. That way I know what to say to you when we meet at network. Yeah,
Yeah.
so all of you guys watching, you know, please, you know, consider joining Asian Hustle Network. You know, there's a lot of great people there sharing a lot of really amazing stories about their journey and about what they do. I don't work for them, they don't pay me, it's all good. And if you do want to do me a really big favor, all of these videos are going to obviously Wisdom Club Facebook group. And so I'm trying to build that group more. I've had it for a couple of years and really was just a place where we were posting inspirational quotes and things like that to just give somebody a leg up during the day. But now we have so many great people in there and I want to give as much value as possible. So we're doing these interviews specifically for that group. And then hence the name. And then we are also just trying to bring more people together there. And so if you guys are watching, you can just search Wisdom Club and you'll find it there. It'll say Wisdom Club with Leo Chen. So please join there and we'll get you guys you know, more value there. So let's talk about Orange County.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So you're born, raised.
Yep. Born and raised in Orange County. I love it.
Yeah. And so what city were you born in?
Laguna Hills.
Laguna Hills. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Laguna Hills is the first place I lived in when we first moved to Orange County.
Okay. It's a great community.
Yeah, no, it's super great. Very suburbia kind of thing, but in a very good way. Excuse me.
No worries.
So what do you love about Orange County? Like what makes you tick?
I think I love Orange County because it's like it has a little bit of like both things that I like. You kind of feel like it's like a more laid back vibe. I can get to places pretty easily. It's not like, you know, I'm stuck in traffic for like hours upon hours at a time. And then we have the beach so close by to us, which is really amazing when you want to unwind. But then there's also like pockets of like places where you really see a lot of businesses and like people that are really trying to be like movers and shakers. So you always get a good sense of that when I always get a good sense of that when I'm like part of the Irvine Chamber. You get to really learn about a lot of businesses and what else is going on in the city. So you kind of have that good laid back vibe, but then also there's like a lot of like hustling that's going around.
Yeah, it's like a California laid back like in the old days, because LA is pretty, it's, I describe it more like a rat race now, just because it's so crowded up there and everybody's trying to get their share, where we're still pretty laid back and still because we're not so pressured. You know?
Yeah.
So I totally agree with that. So in Orange County, I know we have like Irvine is sort of like a little mini Chinatown kind of, right?
Yeah.
In a way. And then Lake Forest is super nice. I used to hike out in Foothill Ranch area,
Okay.
so know it pretty well. What do you like to do like on your own time other than cooking?
That's pretty much like what I do. I you know, cooking is like such a great outlet, you know, for me. Because I grew up in like my parents used to own a restaurant. So I've been like infused with like food terminology and just like food ideas since, you know, I was growing up. So it's kind of like my passion.
That's awesome. My grandfather was an executive chef, and so I always remember that. My grandparents raised me more so than my parents, actually.
Yeah.
So you know that's pretty common, like in
Yep. Yeah.
and so I try to cook, and I always think to myself, like one day that I'll go through cooking school and actually learn, like you know, the more technical and more serious aspects, like that, how to make, like making sauces is like, you know, such an art, right? And it's getting lost more and more as we go. And so lately I've been learning more on how to make stock. You know? So like chicken stock, obviously, it is a long process, and then I think it's really interesting because you can make it different every time.
Right. Yeah.
You know? And I think one of the things that got me into it is that I saw somewhere, I saw like a little video, like a tip video, like on Facebook or YouTube or somewhere, where people were saving their scraps, you know, like vegetable scraps and stuff like that you cut up, like ends of carrots and like, you know, ends of stuff, and like you always chopping stuff up, and those ends, like you just save them and you freeze them so they don't go bad. So you pile up the stuff, and then when you go to make stock, you just dump all that stuff, and you rinse it, of course, and then you dump it in, and you boil that, you know, make vegetable stock. But then if you have some chicken bones that you can save, also freeze them, and you just throw the, you know, the bones in there, and it takes like, I don't know, a good 5 hours, and it's like really good, like really fresh. And then you take that stock and you freeze it, so then you can just use it, you know, over time. And then when you run out, by the time you run out, you have more scraps to go again.
Yeah.
So that's super awesome, because I always thought like, oh my God, this soup is so good, the stock is so good, like how do they make it?
Yeah.
Or what was in it? And it could be like a million different things, right?
I know. Yep.
But I just don't want to buy like stock that has preservatives and it's like manufactured and like every time it's the same, and you know, all that kind of stuff. So that I'm super like into that right now.
Okay. It's a long process. So, you know, kudos to you, because I know there's a lot of like tender loving care that needs to go into like, you know, getting the best stock.
Yeah. No, I think it's just fun. Like, I don't care how it turns out. I just think it's fun. And like, oh, it needs a little more salt. Oh, it needs, you know, because the bones and the cartilage and stuff like that gives it the thick, like more thickness.
Yeah.
So the more meat and stuff like that you put in there. I'm even contemplating buying like chicken feet to put in there, because that's what you use it for. Because there's a lot of gelatin in there.
Yeah.
Use that stock. So one day I'll do it.
Yeah, you should try using pork feet because they have a lot of like fatty,
Oh
um,
yeah,
gelatinous type of stuff. It kind of like melts down and makes it really like broth, kind of like creamy and stuff.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah.
So one day I think I'm going to like I'll make the stock and I'll be comfortable with making stock. Then maybe I'll try to make my own rice noodle or ramen or something like that.
Awesome. Yeah.
Like knead this the dough and make the dough and stuff like that. It's like
Yeah.
that's a really intensive process. Like there's
Yeah.
so much like work
Yeah.
into it. But I love anything like noodle soup and all that kind of stuff. So
Same.
yeah,
Yeah.
I was grown up, and that's one of my dreams. But I read there's like a culinary school in Japan, and all they do is teach you the art of ramen.
Okay. It's like a really complex process. My husband made me ramen for my birthday and it was like it
I
literally
remember
took
that.
3 days.
I remember.
3 days.
I remember that. That was so. Now I forgot that was you guys because I saw that and I was super amazed. Like
Yeah.
so yeah. Invite me to dinner anytime.
Okay.
So very cool. So Orange County. So what do you want people to know? What do you got going on right now? Like what are the clients you're working on that people might know just to get an idea, and we just kind of want to see what you got in your playing field right now.
Sure. So right now I'm working with a few clients. So I have like my food and beverage clients. I also work with apparel companies and also those that are trying to come up with new things given the COVID-19 situation. So they're kind of pivoting their business, trying to provide medical information to different organizations and how to best protect themselves against infectious diseases. But I also have like my tequila clients and my beer clients that I work with. And so some people are like, so you work with the party companies? And I'm like, well, no, it just kind of like happens that way. But I do enjoy, working with those in the food and beverage industry, obviously, because, I have, my background and my family is in the restaurant business. So I think I have a good understanding with that. And then of course, I love those in the fashion and apparel industry because that was where I thought I was originally going to go, but
You're still kind of in it if you work with
I'm
them.
still kind of in it. That's right.
Right? But yeah, I think people always trying to pigeonhole you somehow, right?
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
us more well-rounded people, we're always like, no, but I do this too.
Yeah. Yep.
I have friends that only know me from hiking, and I have friends that
Okay.
only know me from when I was in tech, and I have friends that only know me, from playing volleyball. You
Yeah.
know, so it's kind of funny. Like people don't know, like they only know you from the one thing. Uh,
Yeah.
but yeah, that's super cool. So the message you want to tell people about what you do with the IP space, what's the one message that they can take away today?
I think the takeaway would be, if you have a brand or you're thinking about launching a brand, it doesn't hurt to at least talk to an IP attorney like myself, just to at least give you options on what else is out there, so that you can at least budget it for your future expansion and growth of your business. It really doesn't hurt at all. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so how can people reach you? And
Sure.
yeah, go ahead.
They can reach me through Facebook. They can, some people add me through Facebook or LinkedIn. But on Facebook, you can find me through Michelle MIU EPSTEIN. So you can add me and chat with me there. You can also email me at michelle@miuepsteinlaw.com. Or you can contact me through my website. It's www.miuepsteinlaw, that's MIUEPSTEINLAW.com.
Awesome. I forgot to ask you earlier, but I wanted to.
Sure.
So what kind of lawyer is your husband?
He's a healthcare litigation attorney, so he represents the hospitals, probably like the main hospitals in Orange County against insurance companies.
Okay, so like Hogue and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Those are things like that. Okay. I actually have a client who works in the tech space for healthcare companies.
Mm-hmm.
So might have to direct him if there's any kind of need.
Okay.
So might be both. Like he might need IP for his business, but then he might need litigation on the on the
Right.
healthcare side. Be like like a team up? Like, have you guys ever worked on the same client together?
Oh, both of us? No, we haven't, because usually it doesn't kind of like overlap. So that could be a good thing because he does litigation. So when it gets to litigation, that means there's some sort of adversarial thing going on.
Yeah, so that's a little contingent, huh?
Yes.
Well, that's good. At least one of you got to be contentious, right?
Yep.
Okay, and so lastly, per tradition, we always ask their guests if they can share a quote that they love to share with the world.
Sure.
Tell everybody about your quote.
Of course, and thank you so much for posting it for me. So the quote that I usually follow is one by Oprah Winfrey. So it's create the highest, grandest vision possible for your life because you become what you believe. And I really love that quote because when I was studying for the bar, nobody in my family is a lawyer. So I really had to navigate the process for myself. But I knew that it's something that I really, really wanted to do to be able to help others. And so I always had it on my phone. And so like every day when I thought that, I wasn't going to, do well, or like, I was just kind of like beating up on myself about certain things, I would just look at that quote and then just like, tell myself like, no, you're doing the right thing. You're going to do so much good for the people. So that's kind of like an inspirational quote that I have for myself.
Yeah, that's super amazing. I think that's the key to so many things, to keep people from being stuck where they're at, because so many people stop dreaming, they stop believing, they
Right.
stop looking ahead. I do some Facebook Live sometimes, just impromptu ones while I'm hiking and stuff like that. I just jump on there.
Mm-hmm.
Tell people like, hey, you know what? Thinking about the past is good when you want to, learn what mistakes you might have made, but you
Right.
gotta let them go and you got to think about the future. And like the more ahead you're looking, the more you see, and the more you see, the more you can do toward it. And
Right.
just become that. But without looking ahead and always worried about what happened yesterday, worried
Mm-hmm.
about like what mistakes you made, like that really keeps you from moving. Like we really like getting stuck. And so I always try to encourage people to do that. And this quote, really demonstrates that. And I think it's a lot deeper than just the words. And
Yeah.
so, like you said, like if like, hey, this is like you, I'm sure like you probably pictured yourself as a lawyer, like I can actually see
Yes. Yeah.
what you were
Kind of
actually
visualize it.
doing, like
Yeah.
what kind of conversation you were having,
Yeah.
what kind of chair you were sitting, what kind of office you had, what
Mm-hmm.
kind of clients you were talking with, like
Right.
you had that vision. And really, I think that's most of the work. Like if you just think that, and you when things come up, like you just naturally, gravitate toward. And one day you just wake up. One day you're Michelle Mew.
Yeah, I think it's so important to like visualize and like what you were saying, because I think it's so easy to be really hard on ourselves and really like kind of beat ourselves up. But as long as you continue to visualize and speak positive things to yourself and like really just be your own cheerleader, to know that you can achieve these things and be brave about it, I think you can achieve everything that you want to achieve.
That's amazing. Well, congratulations to you for becoming
Thank
your own dream. And I think we both should try to become chefs.
you. Yeah, let's do it.
Go to the cordon bleu
Yeah.
school, something like that. When I went to Paris, I was so amazed by the food that they had there because I had never been there before. When I went,
Mhm.
I just realized like, okay, yeah, this is a whole different way of like eating and making food.
Yeah.
So have you been there before?
No, I haven't. It's
Oh
like
my
one of the few places that I haven't been to. I travel like quite a bit, but there's like places like, I haven't been to Paris, so want to visit.
Yeah, but you've been to Europe?
No, I actually haven't been to Europe. I've been to a lot of like Asian countries. So like my family's from Hong Kong, so we usually fly to Hong Kong every year, and then it's like we branch off into some neighboring area, and
Yeah,
that's where we go.
awesome. Well, I envy you because I wish like I'd never been to Paris so I can experience that for the first time again.
Yeah.
So you guys gotta like make a plan like as soon as possible. Like that should be the
Okay.
next destination. If you like cooking, if you like food, and you've been in the restaurant industry and you kind of see how the Eastern philosophy of cooking and stuff like that to see like the Western side of how they classically do that. It's super amazing.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's on my bucket list for sure.
I'll give you all the tips of everywhere you need to check out and go.
Okay.
Don't worry about that. There'll be plenty to go to.
Okay. Love it.
Okay. Super cool. Well, I appreciate you. I appreciate you coming on
Thank
and
you,
taking
Leo,
your
for
time
having
with us. Just the last announcement for everybody. So starting July 1st, I will only be broadcasting in the Wisdom Club Facebook group there. So if you guys would like, just join there. I'm going to be putting a link up in here into the post. So do that. And then we'll probably have Michelle back because, you know,
Awesome.
like we're going to have to dedicate some time like specifically to food.
I know. Let's talk about it. I literally could talk about it all day.
Yeah, I know. We need to dig into that more.
Yeah.
So if you guys please do join there. We'll have more amazing guests, you know, coming up, more scheduled for this week and next week. And so that's it for now. I appreciate you, Michelle, for coming on.
Thanks so much.
I'm just amazed, like, you know, you thought of a dream and then you just like, here you are, you know, so very, very inspirational. So that's it for everybody. I will see you guys tomorrow with another guest, and have a great Tuesday evening. And I'm hungry, so I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
All right. Bye, Leo. Thanks so much.
Bye.